Class 23 here, and today we have the Kansept Knives Integra. This is a JK Knives design, and it comes in 5 different variations. You can either get it with this Damascus blade and the Lightning Anno, or Damascus blade with a blasted titanium scale, or they got 3 different versions with S35 VN instead of Damascus. Some quick specs out of the way. You have a total length from tip to heel of 8.5 inches with a 3.62 inch blade, so a nice full-size EDC knife. A grip area from this flipper tab to the back right here of 3.9 inches. Scale thickness coming in at 0.47 inches, and a blade stock thickness coming in at 0.11. Behind the edge thickness on my particular knife is around 18 thousandths, sharpened at 20 degrees per side. Now let's take a close look at this. You have a nice drop point, or I would call it a drop point, with a very robust tip, being that it drops down right here to meet that point from the spine. So you could definitely do some, carving into some wood or twisting, should be fine. You have a very large sharpening choil there. Only problem with doing it like that is you'll find yourself getting hung up on there. There is no jimping up top, but I didn't find a need for it because you have a nice flat spot to put your finger. You have a flat grind on here that they managed to get it down decently thin, but it's going to thicken up rather quickly once you sharpen it. But let's see how this Damascus performs. The knife came with a pretty good edge out of box, and I'm kind of interested. I haven't had any of Kansept's Damascus before, and it's usually not my preferred blade material. I prefer something with good performance over something that looks pretty. I don't know what they use here. A lot of them use the 9CR as Damascus. If that's the case, I think it's pretty expensive for the 9CR Damascus, but I'm not sure. We'll see how this one cuts, and hopefully it does good. Now we're going to test the ergos on this piece of, I think it's either birch or pine. I can't tell, but it's got a very neutral handle, and for the most part, it's fairly comfortable. It does have a few harder angles in certain areas that whenever I really started pushing down into the wood, I could feel. Nothing terrible. I just had to make a few adjustments with my grip, and that edge feels like it's got some tooth to it. I'm hoping that it continues to go strong the longer we get into this, but no super hot spots or anything for me. The clip was out of the way for me, but I definitely found myself adjusting a lot, especially they got that bigger sharpening choil, so I kind of kept grabbing on that at first, and it was sliding on me. But once I started, figuring out where I needed to start, it was a lot easier. Now we move on to the 1/2 inch twisted sisal rope. And I was kind of surprised. A lot of the Kansepts I've tested before this one, they might have come with decent edges and they just didn't have too much bite to them. This one seems to have pretty good bite. It's cutting the rope very easily, effortlessly. I'm not using a whole lot of pressure. Good blade shape for this. And now it is a little bit thicker toward the, right at the tip, but it didn't struggle at all. I think I made 50 cuts altogether before I run out of rope. And, if this is 9CR, I'm happy with that number. If somebody knows what the Damascus makeup, the core steel is, let me know down in the comments. I don't remember if I've asked them that or not, but that's something I will ask them soon. But overall, in this part of the test, I thought it did really, really well. Probably the best so far. Hopefully it'll keep on going. If you're going to try to use that tip to do a drag cut, you're going to have to lift that handle up pretty darn high, so it's better to use the belly portion when cutting on the flat cutting surface. The edge still feels really good here. It's not, the sharpest edge up front, but it still feels pretty good. It wasn't struggling much with pretty much anything I was putting. Now this gave it a little bit of trouble to start with and then to finish, but that's usually the case with this clear tubing right here. It's a pretty dense tubing with that mesh in the inside. It blasts through the corner cardboard. I had a lot of downward leverage going into it, and as you can see, it still has a good bit of bite. So overall, I'm pleased with it. We'll see how that edge is once we get done with the test, but what do y'all think? If it's 9CR, I definitely give it a plus on this one. But I would have loved to check out the S35 yen model. All right, I thought it performed pretty good. Let's see what the edge is like now. Yeah, it's got one little bad spot in the middle. Really not bad. Like I said, I don't really know what their Damascus is made of. It may be the 9CR. And if it's a 9CR, then that's a respectable edge. All right, let's take a look at the deployment in action. It has a minimal flipper tab that does have a few jumps right there. This thing comes rocketing out. It's riding on ceramic bearings and a ceramic detent ball. Very, very smooth drop shut action. Every once in a while, I will slide off of that flipper tab. I would have liked to have a little bit sharper jumping right there, but I'd say 80% of the time I'm good. The reason I'm slipping off most of the time is because my fingers are on that lock bar. As long as I put my finger on that clip, I'm pretty good to go. They do have a landing pad for whenever you flip as well. You don't see too many companies doing that anymore. I like that. It's a nice softer spot for your finger to land. All right, let's close it up and take a look at this handle scale area. You have a T8 pivot, T6 on the body screw. I would have loved to see that be a T8. Now, I know, if you've never had this finish before, it's a cool finish to look at, but whenever the oils of your fingers rub against it like that, it starts to look dirty. Like, I don't know, like it's not as shiny. Now, you can wipe it with Windex or rubbing alcohol and then dry with a microfiber cloth and it'll bring it right back. And it's a fairly durable finish. It's not finished on a knife that I would have picked. I've done it so much myself for customers that I don't know, I don't really enjoy it anymore. It's kind of played out for myself. And the only way you're able to get this finish to make it look nice like this is you have to mirror polish the titanium, which they did a good job on it. I've seen some that look pretty rough because they didn't completely bring it to a mirror polish. The only problem with that is now it's slippery, it's slick. But if you're worried about that, they do have, other variations that don't have this finish on it. This is the only one, I think, with the Lightning Anno. But, if it's going to be a showpiece and you don't plan on using it, I'd say go with this. But if it's going to be a daily user, this is definitely not the one I would go with, and the Damascus either. You do have a lot of milling going on. You have like a inside chamfer that is like a concave chamfer right here on this side. Then you have a wide chamfer going all the way around. And it gives it a lot of different facets and kind of gives it the feeling that it's contoured, but it is just a flat titanium scale. It was fairly comfortable because you have a fairly neutral grip right here. I did notice whenever I was really bearing down, like I was saying in the cutting video part, is that these edges right here, where the chamfer ends, when you're really bearing down, can get a little uncomfortable. Let's close it back up. You do have a titanium backspacer that's coated black on this one. Goes about halfway up the scales. A hidden lanyard pin in the back. Now this knife is tip up, right hand carry only, with a 3D mill titanium pocket clip that I think looks nice. Let's check it out in the pocket. They give you a good bit of space underneath there, so it should fit most of your pants lip, go over your lip pretty well. Now, you don't have a whole lot sticking out, but it's definitely not a deep carry. And this slick finish as well, it holds it, but it's not a super, super tight hold. All right, let's open it up and take a look at the inside. You have some internal milling on the bottom And on the top scale, they did a good job of lightening it up as much as they could. Let's see how much it weighs. First in grams, 123.6 grams or 4.359 ounces. Now let's take a look at the lockup. Mine is sitting, I'd say, at around 40% or so. Now, it's one thing I could say about Kansept knives. I have not gotten any that they're all like super, super solid. No movement at any direction at any time. Excellent job on their lockup. The access to the lock bar, I'm going to call it okay because the lock side is flush with the show side scale. They do have a chamfer on both sides, and I can get my finger in there easy enough. Of course, I would have liked a little bit more, but they're trying to keep that nice clean line there. I have no trouble disengaging it, but if this, say if this lockup gets a little bit later, it may be a little bit harder. I don't know. It's not hard to push over either, so for me, it's just okay. You also have your hardened stainless steel lock interface in there. So if, for some reason it ever wore out, you could always change that out. Quick size comparisons with the Hogue Ritter RSK and Mini RSK. It's bigger than both of them, but more in line with the full-size RSK. Next, we got the Spyderco PM2 and the Kansept Bulldozer. It's very similar in overall length to the PM2, except it's a little bit larger. Two really good side references, the Integra Rat Model 1 and the Kaiser Clairvoyant. All right, nitpicks and complaints. For me, I'm not really a Damascus fan, so I would have, that's just a nitpick of my personal preference. I don't love the sharpening choil, even though it, it's going to give you more sharpening life, but I rather them go just straight up from like right before the plunge so you can, you don't have such a wide gap. But, beggars can't be choosers there. I'm sure some people would have liked to see jimping. I'm not one of those. Maybe a little bit more lock access and a tip for left-handed carry. Other than that, I like the knife. Oh yeah, one last thing. To me, the price is kind of steep for what it is. This knife in the Damascus form with the lightning end, it was coming in at $220. Now, I know how much work it takes to do the lightning end, so I can kind of get by that, depending on what the Damascus core steel is. If it's a 9CR core Damascus, then no, I think it's well overpriced. And now on the flip side, if it's just the S35VN in titanium, that one comes in at $239. Now that I think is very steep because of its competitors. For instance, you can get this Tuya NV4 with S90V titanium frame and a carbon fiber inlay for $239. The same exact price. Also, you can get this Wee Soothsayer with titanium frame, carbon fiber scales, I guess you'd call that, 20 CV blade steel. This one's going to run you $244. And I think, it's a better knife. And then you can get this Kaiser Torngat S35VN titanium, accents, titanium milled clip, accents all over the place, and it has a collaborator on this one. This one right here, $159. So I definitely think I don't really understand their pricing category. If you like the knife and the price is good for you, do I recommend it? Yeah, it's a good knife. I like it. I like the knife a lot, but it's just one that's hard for me to recommend whenever there's, too many great options that are just as good, if not better, for a good bit less, or, you're getting more, that it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And, I'm like I said, I prefer performance over looks. So this one right here is more of like a showpiece to somebody if you want to just, brag about your good looking knife. But did it perform good? Yeah, it did. It performed good. I don't know. I'd love to hear y'all thoughts on that. What do y'all think about the Lightning Anno? I like the way it looks. I just, if you're not going to be touching all over it, it's a fun one to, photograph and stuff like that. But I don't know, not one that I would want to use as my daily user. Like I said, it's a little too slick. You have such a neutral, flat, no textures on here. So I wouldn't want this coming out of my hand, especially, for the winter, in the winter time. We don't really have much of a winter here in Louisiana, but for those folks who do, it'd make it even more slippery. So love to hear y'all thoughts on it. What y'all think about the design overall. Love the design. I think it's a good looking design and it's got a lot good going for it, but that price is just kind of holding me back here. So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, please leave them down below. Hope everybody's having an absolute amazing day. I will see y'all on the next one.